If you like storytime vibes, hit subscribe and let's dive in together.
They say the quiet ones are the ones to watch, not because we're planning some grand theatrical move, but because we're usually the ones who see everything, process everything, and say nothing. I am Daniel, and for years, my silence was my shield. It was my strength. It was the way I ran 3 successful companies without needing to shout about it. But that night, at a casual dinner with friends and colleagues, I learned a brutal lesson. Sometimes, silence is simply mistaken for weakness. And the people closest to you, the one person you love more than anything, can use that misunderstanding to tear you down in front of a whole room. I was mocked. They laughed at me. Even she laughed the loudest. My wife, Emily. I had 2 choices: let the humiliation pass, or finally, calmly, and devastatingly, show them the truth of the man they thought they knew. I chose the truth, and the one calm sentence I spoke changed absolutely everything. I always loved these casual dinners, the clinking of glasses, the easy conversation. It was a brief, welcome pause from the relentless machine that is my life. People often look at my composure, my patience, and assume I have an easy life. They think I just drift through the day, calm and steady. What they don't see is that I listen so much because I'm mentally solving 5 problems, negotiating a new contract in my head, and trying to forecast the market for my 3 distinct businesses, all at the same time. My quiet isn't a lack of thought. It's a total focused commitment to it. I've always kept my work details private. It's not a secret, it's a preference. I don't need the applause, I need the focus. I provide for my family, I keep the roof over our heads. That's the only recognition I've ever truly cared about. Emily, she used to admire this quality in me. She called it my anchor. But somewhere along the road, she started to see it differently. She began to crave the spotlight, the attention that my presence didn't demand. And she started to use my quiet nature as a foil for her own performance. That night, I was sharing a lighthearted, stupid story about misplacing my keys and blaming our cat, Mittens. It was a joke, a silly anecdote meant to invite a smile. But before I knew it, I wasn't the storyteller. I was the target. You should have seen him, Emily said, her voice bright and loud, already drawing the table's attention. She recounted the story, but with a twist. She exaggerated my frustration, mimicked my voice, and then delivered the final blow, a playful jab that I'd be utterly lost, utterly helpless, without her supervision. The table erupted. Colleagues, our friends, Neil, her best friend, all laughed. The sound was a physical weight. I forced a small smile, but it felt like a fragile piece of glass shattering behind my eyes. I looked at her. She was riding the wave of laughter, energized by the attention. She didn't see me. She saw a punchline. She saw a prop. She saw the audience's approval. The pain wasn't in the joke itself. It was the public dismantling of my character, the suggestion that the man providing the foundation for our entire life was actually a clumsy, clueless child. It was the realization that my quiet composure, the very thing I used to protect my energy and focus, had been so fundamentally misinterpreted by the person who promised to know me best. I felt that quiet kind of breakage inside, the kind that doesn't explode, but just snaps. The laughter finally began to die down, leaving that familiar, expectant buzz in the air. This was my moment, the moment the quiet man usually lets it go, smiles, and moves on. But I couldn't. Not this time. The well of patience I keep so deep had run dry. I lifted my glass, a simple, deliberate action. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam the table. I met Emily's eye. Her smile was still wide, a little manic, and I spoke with a clarity that cut through the lingering noise. "You're right, sweetheart," I said. My voice was measured, not a hint of anger, just an overwhelming sense of reality. I do need supervision. The whole table was looking at me now, intrigued. Emily's smile wavered. I leaned in just slightly. "Especially," I continued, letting the word hang in the silence, "when I'm busy running 3 companies and keeping a roof over our heads." The silence that followed wasn't just quiet, it was absolute. It was a vacuum that sucked all the air out of the room. I saw the immediate shift in their faces, confusion, then surprise, then a dawning comprehension. 3 companies, I heard a whisper from a coworker. The word spread around the table, a hushed, reverent mantra. They realized this wasn't an exaggeration. They realized the joke they'd just participated in wasn't about a scatterbrained husband. It was about a man carrying a monumental load. They realized they had mocked a man they didn't even begin to understand. Emily's face. That was the sight that cut me the deepest. The color drained away, her forced smile dissolving into a look of genuine shock and, heartbreakingly, shame. She finally saw the world he carried on his shoulders. I took a slow sip of my drink. I didn't want to gloat. I just needed to establish the baseline truth. It's funny how people confuse quiet with clueless, I said, my voice low but commanding the entire room. Sometimes quiet just means focused. The waiter, who had been approaching our table, actually hesitated and stepped away, sensing the tectonic shift in the atmosphere. That's how profound the silence was. The hardest part was yet to come. I had addressed the room. Now I had to address her. I looked at Emily again. My heart was aching, not with triumph, but with deep disappointment. You've always liked making people laugh, Emily, I said, my voice softer now, a voice only for her. I needed her to understand that this wasn't about her humor, but about her respect. I just wish you didn't have to do it at my expense. Her face burned. The attention she craved had turned suffocating. She tried to force a laugh, a last-ditch effort to recapture the lightness, but no one, not a single person, joined in. My goal wasn't to humiliate her in return, but to let her feel the weight of what she had done. I needed her to drown in her own shame so she could finally understand the harm. For the rest of the evening, the dynamic was completely inverted. I was the one who spoke, and everyone truly listened. They asked me questions about business, about my perspective, about my focus, and Emily sat in silence. I watched her, and the anger was gone, replaced by a profound weariness. I saw not just my wife, but a person consumed by the need for external validation. And when I looked deeper, past the surface of her shame, I saw the true cost of my silence. I had kept the pressure of my world too hidden. I had let her take too much for granted. I was too quiet, and she assumed I was content with being small. When we finally got home, the silence was deafening, heavier than any argument. She started to apologize, the words tumbling out, weak and tripping over each other. Dan, I was just joking. I didn't mean... I stopped her gently. I know, I said. But sometimes what we don't mean says more than what we do. And I walked away. I didn't shout. I didn't need to. I left her alone with her guilt. The true fight wasn't a shouting match. It was the cold, fragile distance that settled between us. I was polite, but unreachable. The warmth was gone. I needed her to understand that sometimes silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it's pain, too deep for words. The next few days were a blur of work and emotional distance. I was civil, but the chasm between us was wide. I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting the very fragile part of me she had broken. I needed her to earn her way back into my trust, my focus. The change, when it came, was slow and deliberate. She stopped trying to joke it away. She started cooking my favorite meals. She left thoughtful notes. Most importantly, I noticed her measuring her words. She was trying, really trying. The shame had done its work, forcing her to see the man she married, the good one, our friend Miel later called me, and finally realized the depth of the respect she had carelessly thrown away. And slowly, so slowly, I began to soften. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a recommitment to the foundation of our life. I'll never forget that night. It became the cornerstone of our renewed respect. It was a painful reminder that respect isn't just private, it's proven publicly. Now, whenever I see her catch herself, whenever I see her genuinely praise me in front of others, I don't see a performer anymore. I see a partner who understands the quiet strength behind my eyes, She remembers that moment as clearly as I do. I never had to raise my voice. I never retaliated. I simply pulled back the curtain on my world for a single, shocking second and let the truth speak for itself. I show them that true strength doesn't need to shout. It simply refuses to be diminished. My name is Daniel, and I am still the quiet one. But now, when I speak, everyone listens. And that, more than any company, is my greatest success.